Hi ladies, Terry here with GracePoint Women's Ministries and my
Hi,
friend Tina.
ladies.
And we are sitting down here by the Columbia River. And I'm sure people are probably wondering what we're doing sitting in the middle of the parking lot, but we wanted to come today and share with you a devotion that I have written that might encourage you, might get some insight to some scriptures that maybe you have never heard before. So this was a devotion that I had written off of the scriptures in Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 25. And I'm going to read my devotion, and then we're going to kind of have some interaction just to kind of, share with you and encourage you. So starting with verse 22, it says, "And straightway Jesus constrained his disciples to get into a ship, and to go before him unto the other side, while he sent the multitudes away. And when he had sent the multitudes away, he went up into a mountain apart to pray. And when the evening was come, he was there alone. But the ship was now in the midst of the sea, tossed with waves, for the wind was contrary. And in the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went unto them, walking onto the sea." So this passage of scripture has much to teach us. In fact, it's one of my favorite passages to reflect on. Right before Jesus instructed his disciples to get into the boat and meet him on the other side, he had fed the multitude the fish and loaves of bread. An incredible miracle that his disciples actually witnessed and partook in. I wonder, as they were getting into the boat, if they were discussing what had just happened, basking in the enormity of that miracle. I think it's safe to say that Jesus probably fed at least 10,000 people that day. Think about that, 10,000 people.
And some people say more.
Yeah, some scholars have actually estimated it to be at 20,000.
Yeah.
But let's take a look at the disciples in the boat. They were in the middle of the sea and in the middle of a storm. They were in that boat because Jesus told them to take it to the other side and meet him there. They were exactly where Jesus told them to be. And that's what I've titled this devotion, Exactly Where You Are Supposed to Be. How many times have you asked yourself, why is this happening to me? Or why am I in this situation or circumstance? I know I have asked that question often.
Oh, I can relate to that. I can relate to that so much, especially during this time. You know, we're all asking ourselves, why are we here? You know, why are we going through what we're going through right now? It's very relatable.
Very,
you know?
Yeah, very. Sometimes when I've asked myself that question, I was just having a bad day and feeling sorry for myself. But other times I truly wondered why. The answer sometimes was that I had put myself in a situation because I followed my own will, my own desires, and I refused any sound advice or direction from friends or from the Lord. Other times I thought I had literally done my best to follow the Lord's direction, and then I found myself seriously doubting that I did when turmoil arose. Other times we just find ourselves in situations because we live in an imperfect world. In 1979, I had the incredible privilege of taking a trip to the Holy Land with my grandparents. I was 16 years old, and we were gone for a little over a week. And one of our visits there was to the Sea of Galilee, and we went out in a boat on the water, to kind of relive what Jesus would have done when he was alive there. And that was an incredible moment. The view of the surrounding countryside was just phenomenal. And I found myself in awe that this was the same sea that Jesus went out in on boats and where he walked on water. That day, the skies were gentle and the water was calm. I wonder what the skies looked like as the disciples got into the boat and Jesus went on alone to pray. Were they stormy? And if so, did the disciples notice, or were they still caught up in excited chatter over Jesus' miracle? If the skies were stormy, I wonder if any of them questioned Jesus' instruction. Have you ever questioned Jesus instructing you?
Oh, God. I'm human.
Yeah. So if it had been me and the skies were crazy and he said, "Hey, get in that boat," I don't know how.
I think I would have had second thoughts.
I would have had to be asking some questions.
It's like, really? You want me to go on the boat?
What? But these were seasoned and experienced fishermen, and certainly they would have noticed if the horizon was troubled. The other scenario is that the storm literally came out of nowhere. It was a storm that was unexpected, and it invaded clear blue skies.
Okay, that's kind of like what's going on right now. Everything that when we were shut down and all of that stuff, it came out of nowhere.
It did.
It was like 1 minute the seas were calm, so to speak, and then all of a sudden it was just chaos.
And it was supposed to be temporary.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah,
and we're 6 months into it.
into
So
it.
yeah.
Yeah. In verse 24, the Bible tells us that the ship was in the middle of the sea, tossed in contrary wind and waves. Several years ago, my husband and I, we took a charter boat off the Oregon coast. That day, the skies were clear and the water was smooth. I absolutely love the ocean, and I remember standing at the very front of the boat. I actually did a Titanic moment, and
I can picture that.
I just love the mist, and we were watching for whales, which we did get to see. But the boat would raise with those waves, and then it would ride them down really aggressively, and it never tossed or turned, but the force of the ocean was so impressive and so humbling, and I can't imagine being in a boat that size or smaller in contrary winds and angry waves. I'm sure the disciples had been in many storms. Most fishermen have. And we're, as Christians, we're kind of like fishermen. We've been in...
Well, we're supposed to be.
We're supposed to be.
Yeah.
We should be. And we've been in a lot of storms. But this particular storm lasted a long time from how I read the scriptures. The Bible tells us that they had rowed between 3 and 4 miles out when Jesus came to them in the 4th watch. Grasp that. They rowed close to 4 miles on a stormy sea.
I can't even imagine that.
No.
They were definitely physically fit.
Yeah, we're assuming all these fishermen were very physically fit, and rowing is hard work, and then adding stormy waters to it.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that they were rowing for several hours because Jesus didn't show up until the 4th watch of the night. I don't know if you've ever done a study on the 4th watch. It's actually really interesting. There's a lot of stuff behind that. But the 4th watch of the night is between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. It is the last hours before dawn, and it's the last hours before a new day. Jesus knew exactly where his disciples were, and he knew exactly what kind of storm they were in. He also knew the exact outcome. I have to wonder if Jesus would have come to them any earlier, perhaps maybe when the waves hadn't gotten as bad, if Peter would have ever walked on the water or not. So that situation created a miracle.
Yeah. No kidding.
That nobody knew. Peter, I'm sure, didn't wake up that morning thinking he could hardly wait to walk on water.
Yeah, this is the day I'm gonna walk on water.
I don't think that happened. Sometimes Jesus lets us get to the last hour of the night, the last hour of the storm before he acts. The disciples, even though they probably felt like they'd been abandoned, they weren't. Jesus hadn't forgotten them. He hasn't forgotten you either.
Well, I think sometimes, and we can relate to that right now again, because sometimes we look around and all we're seeing is just all of the chaos. It's like, where is Jesus in all of this, you know? But we have to remember that, you know, as much as we see the enemy at work, God is even more at work, you know?
Amen.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sometimes the waves and the turmoil, they will keep us from seeing land, kept the disciples from seeing land, keeps us from seeing hope.
Oh, yeah.
But Jesus has his ever watchful eye on us, and he's actually walking toward us. So even when we can't see him, he's on the shore. He didn't go, oh, look, there's a storm. I guess I'll go sleep it off and hope the guys make it. You know, he didn't do that. You know,
I'm hoping for the best.
I'm hoping for the best. He actually was heading to them before they even knew he was heading to them.
That's good.
Our friend Mary at church, her dad Merton, he loved and always wanted to sing the old song called The Sea Walker. I don't know if any of you have heard it, and I'm sure most of my friends from church have, but it's an amazing song. But that is who Jesus is. So he was already walking toward the disciples on stormy waters before they even knew it or could see him.
I love that picture. I just love that picture.
The waves in the sea would have prevented them from seeing very far out from the boat. And it's like if you're in a boat on a clear day, you can see for miles and miles,
yeah.
but in a storm, you can only see what's happening just right around you. But Jesus was there. I wonder if Peter and the other disciples had thought that they would perish in that storm. I wonder if they asked themselves why Jesus told them to get in the boat in the first place and cross the sea if it was going to be their demise. I wonder if they felt that Jesus forgot his promise to meet them on the other side. How many times have we felt that way? I know I have.
I know I have.
Sometimes I felt like the Lord, he's just not bothering with me. He
doesn't see.
This isn't
he
true.
doesn't see me. Yeah, he doesn't see me.
What I thought was going to happen or what I felt the Lord was impressing on my heart, I missed it. You know, it was wrong. But then Jesus shows up, walking on the water, not in the least bothered by the storm. He then asked Peter to step out of the boat and walk to him. And what's so powerful here is that, and I just didn't ever know this until someone shared this a while back, that the storm was still raging at this point. So Jesus has walked up to close to the boat, and he asked Peter to step out of the boat while the water is still going crazy. He's asking him to step out of the boat with the only thing that's clearly keeping him safe from certain demise. So he asked him to step into and onto what was trying to destroy him.
That's amazing. And here we are in the midst of the storm,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak.
So to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we've all been in storms too, where we didn't know how we would get through them. And in this storm, Jesus says, come on out and put your foot on it. You know, step out and walk to me on that storm. So Peter, Tina and I were talking about this. He literally had to climb over the side of the boat. And with the wind in his face and the water stinging his eyes, he had to place one foot on the water and then the second foot. Now, standing up in a boat that's rocking is hard enough, let alone trying to climb out of it.
Oh man,
So-
I can't even imagine that. What that would be like.
I can't, you know, and it's like, what if a wave came in that process and you feel like he was gonna, you know, fly off the boat into oblivion, you know? But he took the steps and he started walking toward Jesus, and he almost made it to Jesus, but then a wave caught his attention. And when he looked away from Jesus,
His eyes were taken off of Jesus.
his focus
Yeah.
was taken off of Jesus.
So
Ladies, we had a slight glitch, but hopefully this will get caught up here. So we were talking about how when he took his focus off of the Lord and looked back at the storm, that's when he started to sink. But in that moment, he cried out, and Jesus grabbed him. And that is a powerful image.
It is. I mean, and it just speaks to you. I mean, it's like, and think about it. Every single time that we go through a storm, you know, if we're right with the Lord and we're seeking God, and we're in tune to what's going on, you know, it's like we're going to get through this. But the minute that we take our eyes off the Lord, it's like we do start to sink. You know, we start. So you know, I always say you start seeing the frogs. You start seeing all of the different things around you, you know, that takes you, you know, your focus off of the Lord. But the minute that you put it back on the Lord, all of the frogs disappear. You know, all of the circumstances, you know, and then the hope is, you know, it rises up in you again, and you can refocus, and you're back on track.
Back on track.
Yeah.
I grew up swimming in all sorts of lakes, and sinking in water is not a slow process at all. It only takes literally 2 to 3 seconds, and you are completely submerged, heading you know, to the bottom. So I don't know where Peter was in the sinking process, but I have to wonder if he was completely underwater with his hands reached up like people do when they start to sink, and that's when Jesus grabbed his hand. I don't know, but
If he was completely underwater and he had to reach down and get him, I mean, who knows?
Who knows if Jesus' hand had to go through the water, you know. But Jesus grabbed him. And what I like here is that Jesus now has a hold of Peter. He's pulled him to the surface. The storm is still raging. And Jesus takes a minute to give Peter a little mini lecture. Oh, you of little faith. I know I would have been like, could we save the lecture and get back in the boat, please? But here they are,
Because
standing
that's the way
on
kids are with their parents.
Here they are standing on the water with the waves going crazy, and the disciples in the boat wondering what's going on. And then Jesus walks Peter back to the boat.
I just love that.
And the Bible tells us that the storm did not stop until both of them got back into the boat. I think that's just amazing. So if you today are feeling like you're in a storm, if you're feeling tossed and tired, remember that Jesus has not forgotten you. The enemy is like the waves. He would like you to think that you don't have any hope. He'd like you to not be able to see land, not to be able to see any hope. And Jesus may ask you to take the first step toward him. He may ask you to climb out of the boat, and he will not fail you if he does. He'll be right there with you, and he won't fail you. In Peter's moment of fear of the storm, that's when he took his eyes off of Jesus, and he realized he was being overtaken. Jesus took a hold, pulled him above water, and into the safety of his protection. He then walked Peter back to the boat, back to land, and back to ministry. So ministry continued. Even after all this crisis, ministry still continued. So I would encourage you to read this study, read this passage, and absorb the lessons that are here. The boat did make it to the other side, and all the disciples with it. In fact, Jesus performed many more miracles once they got to the other side, but that's another lesson. Any final thoughts from you?
I was just thinking, I mean, can you imagine where his faith was by that time? You know, I mean, he was a man of little faith at the beginning of all of this, and then he just grew, you know, in faith. And so I'm sure that enriched his ministry. It did. It did. You know, it made him a better, you know, disciple of Christ. So
he became the rock that Jesus said he would. And so anyway,
That's
we
good
just
stuff.
wanted to get on and share with you. I really hope to do more of these videos. I apologize for the length. in time since the last one. But I want to incorporate some other friends and do some videos that are funny, some that are serious, and just some, to touch base with you guys. So we're always here. If you guys need to talk with anyone or pray with anyone, we're always available. And we love you and we miss you all.
Love you all.
Yeah. And we'll talk to you later.
Bye.